See what we got here. The hentai game that broke 4chan.
Are hackers on steroids, like an internet hate machine. Their name comes from their secret websites.
4chan. The infamous anonymous image board, otherwise known as the bottomless well of degeneracy, memes, unfiltered discussions, and shitposting.
True.
A lot.
4chan is terrifying. For the amount of people that I know that got exposed through old 4chans, terrifying.
A lot of shitposting. Given its often unfavorable reputation, it can be hard to imagine associating any word synonymous with good or wholesome to come from such a place, but every so often there comes a story of some incredible collective feats originating from there, and even more unusually, it can sometimes serve as a platform for people to come together to create something extraordinary. This is one of those times. A story that started with a single image from, of all places, a hentai doujinshi. What follows would be a series of chaotic and improbable events spanning years that would lead to one of the most incredible projects to see the light of day. Because not only were a group of strangers able to band together to complete a monumentally large project that would take years to produce, but even more improbable is that it resulted in one of the greatest visual novels to ever come out of the Western anime community. This is the story of the time 4chan made an eroge that blew everyone's expectations away. This is the story of 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙀 Shoujo.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing something beautiful, something amazing. God, for such a degenerate place like 4chan to exist, let's be honest, it's just Twitter, but less filtered. It's the Elon Musk dream of Twitter, okay? Let's call it spade a spade. Let's be real here. A lot of people like to describe 4chan in different ways. That it's you know, it's hate mongering and evil and racist and all that. Nah. 4chan is anti-establishment, okay? Something's popular, 4chan will find some people on 4chan will figure out how to hate it, okay? Since hentai is not the establishment, it is the perfect thing to thrive on 4chan. It's a beautiful, beautiful existence. What an amazing collaboration. Okay, I've never heard of this,
But before we get on that, I wanted to talk about today's sponsor. Well, 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙀 Shoujo, which roughly translates into Disability Girls, is a visual novel dating...
Disability Girls, bro, that's a sick name for like a superhero show. I'll use my special ability, crutches, to destroy... Okay, alright, now I'm getting... Alright, let's actually stop. Let's stop that here before we get canceled.
...sim that tells the story of 5 high school girls living with various disabilities who you get to romance. And who knows, maybe eventually get a bit of sex...
Wait, you get to romance people with disabilities? This seems... weird. Do you want the mentally handicapped one or the physically handicapped one?
Sexy time with. Yeah, I know. Given the very sensitive subject matter and given the place it originated from, it's easy to expect nothing less than a tasteless disaster that would go down in infamy in the bowels of the internet. And yet, anyone who's played this will know that it was a wholesome, inspirational story that has touched the hearts of many and is still very, very loved to this day. Even now, I've seen countless people talk about how 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙀 Shoujo touched their lives and sometimes even changed it in some way. But one thing that I find just as incredible as the story of the game itself is the story of how this project got made. This isn't some small game. It is a full visual novel with 30+ hours of content complete with CGs, music, and animation that took a team of amateur developers years to make and was released for absolutely free. This was before the era of the Steam visual novel boom, before Kickstarter projects, before easily accessible visual novels in general. Just a group of strangers working without pay for years on a project that might never had been finished. The more I think about this project, the more it blows my mind that not only was something like this seen to completion, but also turned out as incredible as it was. How did such a project get completed, where so many other smaller games, indie titles, and Kickstarters with proper funding faltered, forgotten about, never to see the light of day?
Because someone has a real fetish to have sex with a girl that doesn't have arms. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the place where that fetish could thrive.
The roots of where this all started. We need
passion!
to go back much earlier, to a simpler time of the internet. So for those of you who aren't me and actually go out and enjoy life, visual novels are an interactive story-driven video game that are more often than not displayed with an anime-esque art style. In fact, visual novels originated from Japan itself and still arguably makes up a large percentage of the PC games that are released from there. Some visual novels also double as a dating sim, where at least one of the main goals involves the player trying to romance one or multiple characters through the interactive narrative. Or as I like to call it, A touch grass simulator. As the player, it's your job to make choices that affect the overall.
This is the opposite of a touch grass simulator. The opposite. This is a weed whacking simulation.
Overarching story and the relationships you forge with other characters, while every choice you make potentially branches off into a different storyline with multiple endings. Some visual novels are pure romances, some are fantasy or science fiction stories, and some of them were porn. Like, a lot of them.
I mean,
A lot of them were.
Yeah.
And still are.
Let's go!
Some big games that are basically visual novels are franchises like Phoenix Wright and the Danganronpa series, but some others you may have heard of are things like Steins Gate, Clannad, and... what does this say? Fate? Stay Night? Never heard of it. However, back in the day, it was really hard to get a hold of any of these copies unless you actually lived in Japan. There was no visual novels on Steam, none on Marketplace, there was hardly even any official translations. So, a lot of the weebs during those early days of the internet took it upon themselves to try and spread the love through fan translations of pre-existing Japanese visual novels. I know this is gonna sound absolutely alien to anyone below the age of like fucking 25 or something, but getting visual novels back then was a Navy SEALs level operation of difficulty.
Bro, I am 26, and I have never played a visual novel. What does that make me? Like, more or less esteemed in your eyes?
You had to go on some dodgy website and download 50 separate .rar files individually on the slowest internet that you can only do one at a time, of which would only allow you to download like 5 files per day. So you're kind of just praying to God that you're not just downloading these files for multiple days, only to get to file 49 and find that the link is broken. And you're gonna have to find some other website and start all over again. Sorry, I'm getting some...
I love how he's venting.
But through this...
Bro, every YouTuber, their comment section is just their therapist, okay? Like, let's call a spade. That's the fact. It's the way it is.
A whole culture of parody visual novels were formed, because any old weeb could stick together the most janky-ass flash game dating sim and upload it. I know there must have been a few of you out there that discovered that shitty Ava dating sim and the Love Hina visual novel back in the day, browsing Newgrounds and seeing stuff like Ganguro Girl sim and the Love Hina visual novel.
Do you hate Osama bin Laden? Check out all these games and movies. What? Is that really Newgrounds right now?
Newgrounds and seeing stuff like Ganguro Girl, Frank's Adventure, and just having your world opened as a horny, hormonal teenage anime fan. If you do, please make yourself known so I don't sound like a crazy boomer right now. Thinking back to the fan-made bootleg dating sims of the mid-2000s feels like a fucking fever dream. But all this was the landscape of the community at the time. Because, let's be real, we were fucking weebs, and a lot of us had that same cringy dream of wanting to make our own anime one day, and visual novels...
True. And look at me, I became my own anime one day!
were kind of the closest we could ever get to that with the resources we had. So while I can't exactly explain why the collective of 4chan's anime board would jump on the idea of creating a visual novel, it's very possible that this would have sown the seeds of interest for many on that board to want to make their own. Though for the origin of the disabled girl dating sim idea itself, we need to go back even further. Sometimes an idea can sprout out at any time in a place you wouldn't expect. And for Katawa Shoujo, that would come in the form of a bloody Miyazaki film.
Nani? Nani?
Nazca Valley of the Wind is a classic anime film.
I laughed like that because it's Halloween. It was my witch laugh.
That's been credited for being the origin of Studio Ghibli itself. But we're not here to talk about the 1984 Miyazaki classic or even its original manga. We're here to talk about its hentai.
Nice.
Yes!
In December of the year 2000, the Doujin Circle Zettai Shoujo released a Nazca of the Valley of the Wind doujin called Shupen Harnish. Really hope I pronounced that one correctly. The doujin would center around the character Kushana, who, in the world of Nazca, is a princess who's had 2 of her legs and 1 of her arms amputated.
Well, this is where it all starts, baby. It's the Guro fetish. The Guro fetish has created this Gigguk video.
Because everyone loves that amputee tag, right guys?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
The main body of the doujin itself isn't too important, as it's just a standard doujin doing doujin things.
Nice.
Yeah,
But what's really important here is that the artist who went by writer would include some extra omake pages.
Japanese.
Motherfucker, do you speak it?
And on one particular page, there would include concept art for a dating sim featuring disabled girls that he dubbed Katawa Shoujo. There was a deaf girl who was a class president type, an armless girl who would hold up her chopsticks with her feet, one had no legs, one had severe burn scars, and the last one was blind. It was all just very basic ideas with not much to work with, and I'm sure the writer himself had no idea how important this single page would one day become. The real event that would set this idea in motion, however, would come a whole 6 years later, where, for some unknown reason, a fan would choose to color and translate this page and this page alone, unknowingly putting the final piece in place for this idea to take center stage on a board full of eager, degenerate weebs. It was the one page from a hentai manga that started an avalanche. On the 4th of January 2007, writers translated Omake page,
Dirty bastard, you've done it again!
Was posted onto 4chan's anime board, and they went crazy. Hundreds of individual ideas, sketches, and concepts were thrown out there and discussed what this dating sim would actually be like if it were real. Thread after thread after thread was created and filled before another one would pop up almost immediately to repeat the exact same cycle.
I nominate Burns-chan for Resident Tsundere. Are you stupid? Burn-Face-Tan isn't Tsundere. She's shy, reclusive, and so Moe, I'm gonna die.
If I was deaf, I would run around screaming like a dying giraffe. That would be fun.
You guys have created a game A can relate to. Congratulations. Enjoy your new status.
It got so popular that a mod actually had to pin one of the threads, which for a site that is...
Okay, I was terrified. I thought I saw Fifi in chat for a second. Woo! Woo! She's not here, we're safe.
All about the impermanence and volatility of its discussions, wasn't it?
Is it too late to make an amputee VTuber? Can we make an amputee VTuber, guys? Yo, it'll be amazing. It'll be a VTuber that she like waves with her feet and stuff. Oh my god. Oh my, it's a new fetish. There is already. There goes my original idea.
An extremely rare event. The unified creative force couldn't be stopped. It had taken a mind of its own. Eventually, calls were made to make this game a reality, and riding on nothing but the sheer momentum of a single concept page, the collective hive mind of A decided to actually do it. A development forum was created in an attempt to be able to collect and organize enough ideas to give this project a sense of coherency, but the floodgates were already opened. This unabashed collective ushered in a no-holds-bar, bare-fisted Royal Rumble cage match of ideas that battled it out on the open forum. Some took shape and evolved, and some were shot down almost as quickly as they were born. Plot paths, locations, character quirks, character backstories, music, and foley. Everything was discussed. Everything was open game, whether suggestions were actually serious or not.
Do you think she looks more ara? Ara ara? Or oh-ho? Ara 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 ara.
These are the questions.
The platform soon became a very different kind of cesspool, one of raw creativity and disorganized ideas. Yet somehow, through all this madness, the girls were able to gain a semblance of personality and even get names. Rin, Lily, Shizune, Hanako, and Emi complete with their kanji spelling. However, due to this being decided by the collective energy of weeboos alone with little understanding of the actual Japanese...
Dude, what are all these Yu-Gi-Oh references? I'm getting a little, I feel like I'm getting called out. Oh my god, I cannot believe this. Oh my god. What? There's no, I'm going through stages of enlightenment. Bro, this is insane. I'm sorry. I'm calling a Yu-Gi-Oh YouTuber right now. Who's online? Is Farfa online? Dude, no one's online. Oh, Stevie Blunder's editing my video. I'm stupid, of course. Stevie, you're editing my video, okay? Put a little clip of yourself in here helping out, okay? Put yourself in here and be like, you know, in typical Stevie fashion.
Due to this being decided by the collective energy of weeboos alone with little understanding of the actual Japanese language, there were some names like Iwanko that slipped through the cracks, which isn't actually a Japanese name. The setting would, unsurprisingly, be some kind of Japanese high school that specializes on disabled students, and unbeknownst to the fan that originally colored the page, they would have already had one of the biggest influence in the visual designs, as the color schemes for the school uniforms and the girls would remain the same until the game's release.
Damn.
Eventually though, as expected, the hype would start to die and the momentum would slow. The fickle interest of anonymous users would quickly evaporate, as they would soon go back to doing exactly what they were doing before, leaving the few remaining stragglers to pick up the pieces that resulted
being racist on 4chan. How could they?
From this chaotic stream of events as they tried to figure out, so where the hell do we go from here? It's April 2007.
It's like, who would have thought that the passion for a single page of hentai after multiple moments of post-nut clarity would no longer be in the forefront spotlight.
4 months since the original thread post. Any momentum that it originally had almost completely gone. There's infighting about whether it still should be an open project that the community can always contribute to, or a closed project worked on by a dedicated team. Whatever the case, any progress has almost come to a screeching halt, and the project is in real danger of dying a slow death. In comes a man by the name of Cameron O'Neill, who went by Crud online, and who I was lucky enough to interview for this video project.
What a legend! Gigguk, you found this 4chan dude! That's dope! Oh my god!
Organizing online projects, from working as a fan subber on shows like Higurashi, and was basically put in charge of organizing a new development forum from scratch with a handful of remaining devs who were still interested in pursuing the project. The new ragtag team was formed. Crud was in charge of writing Hanako's story, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙖𝙞 was in charge of writing Shizune's, Aura for Rin, another writer for Lily's story, and Hive Mind agreed to write Emi's path.
Yeah!
The team also had people working on character and background art, as well as an overall director who would start to learn how to use Ren'Py, a fairly well-known visual novel engine. Everyone in this core team was given their job and dedicated roles for the project, thus cementing the birth of 4 Leaf Studios, in reference to the 4chan logo that all this originated from. Most amateur teams start off with a small project. In visual novels, smaller projects can be around a few hours of playtime. So, with a collective team experience of exactly 0 when it comes to writing, drawing, or producing any visual novel content, they all agreed on a decision that I imagine went something along the lines of this. Alright chaps, now I know none of us have any experience making visual novels and we're a complete group of independent strangers with no concrete hierarchy with our team, but how do you chaps feel about making a full-length, multiple-path, 30-hour plus visual novel on our first attempt?
No, of course.
What can possibly go wrong? Everything you could possibly imagine went wrong. At the end of 2007, the team initially thought the game would be finished in around 2009. Little did they know that they would be signing up for roughly 5 years of development hell. The plan was to make a full visual novel right from the get-go, and with the collective inexperience they had, they blindly charged forward, haphazardly assembling text and pictures to be assembled in order to create the first playable version of the game. Many of the side characters were created early on, and the main cast started getting more personality, which became the basis for the final game, and eventually the first alpha version of the game is done, which is codenamed Grid 1. This was actually leaked onto 4chan, reigniting the interest in the project, allowing them to add Nico Amafi as the game's composer and Delta, who would help customize the game's engine and UI.
Gigguk
But it
really went hard on the
this
research.
project was the ultimate Chekhov's gun, as even with a smaller team, there were still so many ideas floating around with no one really knowing where they should go. Sometimes it felt like everyone was working on a different game, leading to this weird Frankenstein-like project of different parts, and half the fun was just trying to see where everything could go. They soon realized that all the work they'd done would lead to disastrous results further down the line unless everything was scrapped and the writing work start all over again. Dejected, the team try to salvage what they can and craft the basic structure of the whole game. Act 1, the first chapter of the game, would be shared between all paths and written in collaboration between all the writers until it splits off on the last day, so they all decide to rewrite Act 1 together and then everyone moves on to their individual story paths. That makes sense, right? Sounds like a way better approach and things seem to be going way more smooth. Wrong. Later on, Aura realized that things could be better and restructured the whole things by themselves. This would mark the beginning of the third rewrite for Act 1. Soon, the project would lose its character artists and the main writer for Lily's stories, so new members needed to be found. This would be the first instance of many of the staff coming and going on the project. A new writer, Tsuriko, was found to handle Lily's story, but throughout the next few months, the dev team went through a bunch of artists who would join.
I wonder who was like in charge or it put in command of who gets to be counted as a writer. Like, I get the amount of work that goes into this is insane. Like, I've worked on projects or with people that were working on projects, so I understand. But who actually has that commanding vote? That's really interesting.
And quit soon after for their own reasons. After 8 months, the project didn't even have a single background image.
And was this all done free will? No one was paid? They got free writers, free artists, free everything for this entire story? It was a passion project done by a couple people that wanted to have sex with disabled girls? Like, that's really, really cool that they managed to get so many of them to expose themselves in 4K like that.
Image finished, and there was a clearly massive issue of a complete lack of character artists as well. Despite this, through sheer blind faith that a visual novel without any Visuals was a problem that was probably going to be fixed down the line. The team pressed on. Writers finished their drafts for their story paths, the engine started looking something not too far removed from the final product, a group of editors was brought in, and in spring of 2008, their faith was rewarded, as a ragtag group of artists came aboard to work on the character and CG art for the game. However, one massive aspect of every visual novel is of course the background art, and unfortunately they still had 0 background artists. Background art takes a ridiculous amount of work to produce and a very specialized skill set, so to fix this, the team went back to their roots and asked the community for help. For the various settings of the visual novel, the team would ask people to submit photos, which would be put through a filter to change the aesthetic to be a bit more anime-esque.
That's so dope! Oh my god, they just got the all of 4chan to give them pictures. What legend!
A user named Ujovi would contribute a great deal, but coincidentally, Aura and Crud actually visited Japan and were conveniently using some of the pictures for the game's backgrounds. As you can imagine, most of the images were taken in places across Japan, but the high school where everything was set in was taken in the very Japanese high school of Brown's University in Rhode Island. Unfortunately, the rotating doors of workers coming and going wouldn't stop. According to Cameron, working on the project very much felt like it could drop on a day-to-day basis. Remember, during the entire duration of the project, not a single person was getting paid, and there was nothing keeping people on this project other than their own drive to want to finish it. After producing some music, Nicole quits out of boredom, while the original background artist and director are fired from 4 Leaf Studios. But enough of all that bad news, because finally, for some good news, near the end of 2008, the entire script for the game was finally done, and after reviewing it all, it was decreed that it sucks. It still read like a weird, stitched together mess of earlier ideas. But this is fine, no problem, minor inconvenience. Because on the bright side, and I say bright with an overcast, poo brown covered filtered kind of bright, the art production was way behind
kind of bright. That's the bright side of, well, hey, YouTube demonetized your video, but at least it was sponsored.
Schedule anyway, so they had time to rewrite everything in Act 1 from scratch. Again. Learning from their mistakes and better experiences, the team was able to produce a much better final script that ended up being the actual one used for the game. Plus, Blue123 came on board and started composing some additional background music for the game as well. It's interesting because while Act 1 technically had a 2-year-long development cycle, everything in the final product was actually done in a little over half a year. Only the original coding stayed consistent from the beginning and some earlier developed music was carried over. About 2 years after the first posting on 4chan, rewrites, rewrites, members joining and leaving, and the project teetering on death the entire time, Act 1 was finally finished and released to the public in April 2009.
Satsuki!
Act 1 was only meant to be a litmus test, and while some of the devs originally thought that it would only be shared or talked about on message boards that inspired this madness, it ended up generating a significant amount of attention online that blew everyone's expectations away and gave the team a dub they thoroughly deserved, and at this point, probably needed. There were even people online willing to come on board to translate the game to dozens of different languages. Japanese, Hungarian, Russian, German, and since then even way more languages by various different groups. More significantly, they managed to add a substantial element in their game in the form of animated openings. As an animator, Mike Inell offered his services to the group, which they accepted. It took weeks for the devs just to go through all the feedback so they could properly account for what worked and what they could improve on. But it became clear that they were on the right track. With all that attention came a rise in ambition. The team had learned, leveled up, and knew they could do better, and so they made the hard decision to go back and rework significant parts of the script from various angles. As you can imagine, reworking and scrapping huge parts of the game script was not an easy thing to do. But at this point, it wasn't something they weren't already used to. In early 2010, another artist was asked to join because unfortunately, the team soon realized that they didn't actually have enough people to produce the large amounts of art they would need for the final game. In fact, you could argue that the whole team was severely undermanned to deal with the sheer amount of work that needed to be done. However, adding any more people to organize and manage might have made things detrimental in a kind of different way. So they decided to carry on steadily with the people they had, even though production was still plagued with communication issues between all of the departments, and there was still so much artwork that needed to be finished. Despite all of the support, the team was starting to get weary, but they didn't stop. Pretty much everyone on the core team had burnout at one point and had to take an extended break from the project, but miraculously, everyone stayed on board. After constant setbacks, for the first time in a while, they could actually see the ending in sight. From summer 2010 onwards, it was no longer a matter of if this game was ever going to come out, but just a matter of when. With rejuvenated motivation, a strong sense of hope, and a better idea of what the fuck they were actually doing, they knuckled down and cracked on. And after their years of turmoil, a revolving door of writers, composers, artists, and other staff members through its entire development, on January 4th, 2012, exactly 5 years after the initial 4chan post, 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 Shoujo was released to the public.
Dubski! I've never before have been so excited to hear about the release of a disabled girls hentai amputee game.
They did it.
They did it.
Actually did it.
The legends.
This ragtag team of amateur developers not only saw a full-length 30+ hour visual novel to completion, but somehow it was actually really good. The team were met with almost unanimous praise from fans and critics alike, moved many people, while also reaching a far larger audience than they ever intended or imagined. Mainstream gaming outlets talked about it. It got people who never played a single visual novel before try it out.
The unsexy dating game? Clearly someone that doesn't understand the beauty that is having sex with someone's chopped off leg. Alright, I can't even make this joke anymore.
It reached far beyond the little anime and visual novel boards on 4chan that it started on. Even Writer, the original artist that helped start all of this, wrote a post on a Japanese blog thanking the developers, expressing heartfelt gratitude for their combined efforts.
Aww.
To this day, 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 Shoujo remains a cult classic beloved by many. Personally, I first heard about it like many other people, seeing people talk about this eroge from 4chan revolving around dating disabled girls, and of course hearing that, my curiosity was piqued as my gut reaction was, oh god. Let's see how big of a train wreck this is going to be. And yes, while there were some eroge scenes in it, like so many other visual novels initially marketed as eroges that people realized were actually so much more than that, 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 Shoujo was exactly that. What I was met with was not only a wholesome but inspiring story about a group of people who strive to push past misfortunes and hardships that life had given them. This isn't just the type of story that people enjoy, this was the type of story that could really change people's lives, teach them something about themselves and the relationships with people around them. And to me, seeing a story so powerful, so impactful, knowing the journey it took to get there is nothing short of a miracle. Because I think the most—
Really? Nothing short of a miracle? Are we being a little liberal with the term miracle? Like, I don't want to judge or anything, but miracle though? Like, that's heartwarming, but miracle.
The most impressive thing was the reaction from 4chan itself. 4chan, the board of hardened degenerates, the community with some of the most—
racists. And people that don't like me. And some people that do like me. Shout out to those guys.
most unfiltered, unflinching, jaded people on the internet had their hearts moved. This was the game that taught 4chan how to feel.
It's a great, very well-researched video. This is the game that taught 4chan how to feel. Every time a 4chaner cries, it's because he remembers the time that he had sex with a girl with no arms.
It was the game that broke 4chan itself.
I downloaded the game for fat material. Now I'm sobbing up looking back on the good Emmy ending. I don't even like hentai. I just thought,
I don't even like hentai. Ah, yeah. I don't even like hentai. Alright, dude. Alright. Okay, mate. Nice try there. Please. Alright. I don't even like hentai. It's a mood. Twist. Oh, twist over there.
I'm horny. Maybe I can jack off to this. God damn it. I got a waifu. And I'm crying about it.
You fucking broken me, V. Eat shit.
Guys, I'm seriously crying fucking bitch tears right now like you wouldn't believe. I'm not even at the end yet. Fuck Four Leaf Studios for doing this to me, for making me feel these feels.
Help, V. I think you've broke my boners.
For fuck's sake, I haven't stopped thinking about this game for 2 days straight and this shit isn't helping! Fuck!
I was prepared to fap, but I wasn't prepared to feel.
𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 Shoujo.
That is like an actual amazing quote. That is, hold on, 4chaner. That could be quoted.
𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 Shoujo is still free to this day, available for download to anyone who visits the site, and if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend you give it a shot, even if visual novels aren't usually your thing. I wanted
and
to
also not if you're under 18 years of age.
make this video not just to fill in the gaps of the story for those who are curious, but also to highlight this game to those who might not even be aware of its existence. At a time where visual novels are probably more popular now than they've ever been,
What? Really? Damn.
𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞 continues to be possibly one of the most influential and downright inspirational stories that I feel not enough people talk about these days. Because as great as the story of the game is, I think the story that came to pass for this game to be made is just as impressive. Many of the devs have gone on to work on more official industry projects like serialized books, the artists have gone on to work on many other official visual novel projects, Mike Kinnell has made quite a name for himself as an animator, and Cameron O'Neill even now is in the process of working on a visual novel as we speak. Which all shows that despite their collective inexperience, there was real talent in this team. And as improbable as it was for this many talented strangers to be able to congregate and persevere for this one project, it would be the last time. This is the first and only project 4 Leaf Studio have publicly stated that they'll ever make. And while there's a chance certain members will work together in future projects, the collaboration of this core team of talented people has, to this day, remained a one-off.
Chat. Family Guy cutaway joke. Hey Lois! That reminds me of the one time I cried while playing a hentai game on 4chan.
And that's why, to me, 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙩𝙖𝙀 shoujo stands as a unique anomaly of its time we may never see again. I've seen school projects crumble for less. This was a project made by a team with no experience, no budget, no guarantee their work would ever be seen. Fueled by pure passion, but it wasn't just
passion. I'm just saying it again so you really... Passion that got this project made. This game was teetering on a knife's edge for most of its development. From conception to completion, so many unlikely things needed to come together, so many serendipitous events needed to happen, so many stars needed to align for this thing to not only come to fruition, but be as incredible as it was. So many people wanted to have sex with disabled girls.
And that is the miracle story.
Why am I doing this to Gigguk? You made such a good video and I'm just...
of 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙩𝙖𝙀.
I'm happy you made this video, man. Not only because it was a good video, but because, god damn it, it's this great style of content. I'm really happy it did well. Because obviously this isn't his completely normal style of content. I know he talks about hentai and stuff, but it's not his typical content. And after all the research that went into this video, I think he would have been heartbroken if this video wouldn't have done well. And it's a great video. So I am so happy that it is doing well, and I am so happy that this is a direction he actually has to take his content in the future. Gigguk, you made a goddamn really cool video there, good sir. Very impressive. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam!